This one is on your MCR core task 1.2, which means your audit. It's a critical analysis of your company's reputation with specific focus on culture, character, and identity. Remember, at the end of this task, you've got to clearly identify the strengths and weaknesses with regard to those sub-elements, of course connected to how those are currently impacting your reputation. So, to make this task a success, it's very important you do a thorough audit of your organization. So you got to select the right tools related to these sub-elements and also tools related to the overall reputation. So the selection of the right tools itself will score marks for you, because a good consultant will know what tools to use for the given purpose. Now, when you're using those tools, the second area of marks come for the research you've done. In most cases, this will be secondary research. For example, if you use a RepTrek or a RQ, or you're trying to do a most admired format, most admired company format to understand the company's reputation, what type of sources are you going to use to support your point of view? For example, under RepTrek, if you're going to analyze a company's workplace or citizenship, you got to do a couple of years of research to figure out what were they doing in 2011, for example, and how has that continued or changed over the last 3 to 5 years. You got to have a 5-year horizon to know what's happening to some of those aspects relevant to that company's reputation. So ensure you do this with a fair amount of depth of research. Look for insights. Conclude with ratings and rankings to make it analytical, so that your work becomes fairly objective. So with that type of research done, you can move on to your report to present to the board of directors your findings. So what's a good start? Maybe a good start is to set the context, appreciate the industry, some changes to the industry, or any specific factors affecting the company, leadership change. And when you talk about this context in a very summarized approach, you could always keep referring to your company background so you don't repeat what you've already done. So if the industry is going through a turmoil or industry is seeing positives, if the company is going through some changes, that sets a good context in which you would have to now indicate to the CEO that a reputational audit has been conducted. It also makes sense to take another couple of lines and explain what the approach to your audit was. What tools have you used? What type of research has been done? What type of sources have been used? So that it sets a beautiful platform for you to present your findings, rather than just abruptly starting with a heading like culture or a heading like identity with no logic to how does this whole thing come together. So with that said, you could set up the headings under which the examiner has prescribed: culture, character, identity, and start bringing your findings under each one of these. Or you could be a little bit more advanced by indicating your finding in the heading itself. Example, rather than saying identity, if you have diagnosed a hybrid identity, you could use the term hybrid identity. If you find a weakness in a specific aspect of their communication, you could indicate that. Lack of two-way communication with employees. So you can be very specific in your finding in the heading itself and justify using the rest of the research. Now remember, for you to conclude that there's an issue in the company's culture, you got to evaluate it from multiple aspects, through multiple tools. One diagnosis using, let's say, cultural audit could show certain routines and rituals the company is continuing or discontinuing. As a result, how it is impacting the overall reputation of the organization. For example, at Toyota, some time ago, when Toyota was probably paranoid about the quality, there were many rituals and routines in their QC area. In fact, they converted the QC into QA, quality control to quality assurance. And there were rigorous routines before a new product or a prototype was released to the next stage or was released to market. But as the company changed its strategy, some of those rituals and routines changed, culture changed. So you got to attack culture from multiple aspects and show exactly where the change has happened, support it with evidence, and show whether that change has created a positive impact or a negative impact, or strength or a weakness, and connect that to the overall reputation element that this specific aspect is impacting. For example, it could be impacting the reliability aspect of your reputation. It could be impacting the trustworthiness aspect of your reputation. So likewise, you got to pick the key areas and critically analyze it and come to that final conclusion of here are the strengths and here are the weaknesses with regard to the character, the culture, and the identity of this organization. If only you do this, it will set the platform for you to go to your recommendations in the next times. So, to help you do this, a frequent question coming out of most of you is, what type of audit should you do? Clearly, you should do a reputational audit with a 5-year horizon. It's up to you to use the Reputation Institute models or any other model that is relevant. Clearly, you need to do an identity audit, going into the sub-elements in detail. Clearly, you need a culture audit. But are you going to use one tool or two tools is up to you, because one tool sometimes will not diagnose all aspects. While we are very, very familiar with Cultural Web by Johnson and Scholes, what about the areas such as communication climate, which are very MCR relevant? So go through your textbook to find out relevant theory. Go through your core text by Frombrem, by Davis, by Owens to get very, very MCR relevant theoretical frameworks so that your audits are fairly focused. What about a stakeholder audit? And there are theories far beyond Mendelau's metrics with regard to stakeholder analysis that you could use to come to conclusions about where the company stands. So act like a good specialist doctor or a good lawyer trying to diagnose the root cause rather than just the symptom. Remember, when the trustworthiness of a company is going down, that's a symptom. But what are the related root causes that is impacting them? Maybe the communications, maybe the inconsistency of communications is what's driving the trustworthiness down. Or maybe the transparency of the communications with investors that's driving the reputation specific areas down. So diagnose the root cause, and that's going to give you a fair amount of good marks in your assignment. So remember, at the end of this task, the clear diagnosis of the strengths and weaknesses should be the way you conclude this task 1.